yesterday's primetime hearings from the January 6th committee. They found and presented to viewers new footage of the Capitol breach, and testimony from several witnesses sought to demonstrate the events were coordinated by then President Donald Trump, all in an attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. Let's get more from our congressional correspondent, Kilmeny Dukart. She joins us now live from Capitol Hill. Kilmeny, good morning.
Good morning, Sean and Emma. The violent and bloody breach of the U.S. Capitol played out before a primetime news audience last night. And through evidence and testimony, members on that committee sought to make a direct correlation, a direct link between the former president's false claims that the election was stolen and the attack that unfolded that day.
Those who invaded our Capitol and battled law enforcement for hours were motivated by what President Trump had told them, that the election was stolen and that he was the rightful president. President Trump summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack.
Using security camera footage and body cams, the committee used a carefully curated timeline to show how Capitol Police were outnumbered, being beaten by rioters, and showing chants from the crowd to hang Mike Pence. They also showed this testimony from the former Attorney General Bill Barr batting down claims that the election was stolen.
Told the president in no uncertain terms that I did not see evidence of fraud. That would have affected the outcome of the election. And frankly, a year and a half later, I haven't seen anything to change my mind on that.
They also showed this video of investigators questioning the former president's daughter, Ivanka Trump.
Barr made that statement.
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
In all of this, Republicans say that the committee has never investigated why the Capitol was so ill prepared for an attack like this, or how to make the Capitol more secure, rather. And they've also lashed out at the treatment of former Trump advisor Peter Navarro, who claims that he was placed in leg shackles and solitary confinement and denied legal representation when he was arrested for failing to cooperate with the January 6th committee, a claim that federal prosecutors deny. The feds have issued a gag order to prevent Navarro from speaking publicly on the matter, as Navarro seeks a 45-day court extension in order to find legal representation. All of this happening as the committee over the next few weeks will continue to hold these hearings to reveal evidence from their 10-month investigation.
All right, and this is just the beginning. As you point out, there will be more of these hearings. Kilmeny Dukart, thank you so much.
All right, joining us now to discuss is Republican congressional candidate from Wyoming, most notably running against Liz Cheney. We get your shot set there. Harriet Hageman, good to see you, Harriet. Thanks so much for taking the time here. I've got to get your thoughts on this. So the January 6th hearing, Liz Cheney really making some headlines there. The Congresswoman there, one of two Republicans on the committee there. She made several powerful statements directed at former President Trump. She said President Trump assembled the mob, all but blaming the former president there for what happened on January 6th. I'm curious, is that what constituents there care about? What you're hearing, your thoughts on Congresswoman Liz Cheney?
Well, thank you for having me today. And what I have to say is that the opening statements from yesterday, if you will, demonstrate that there really is no new evidence that we haven't already heard or that hasn't already been leaked. It's clear that this is an effort to make sure that President Trump is never able to run for presidential office again. That's what this committee is about. This is a politicization of the congressional process. Kinzinger and Cheney were both appointed by Nancy Pelosi. There's no defense to any of this. The fact that they hired the gentleman from ABC to produce this show, this that we're seeing demonstrates that it's all about messaging. And as for your question as to whether this is what the people in Wyoming care about, I was in Casper yesterday at a meeting with over 100 people at a town hall, and I can assure you this isn't what they were focused on. They were focused on the fact that we now have inflation at 8.6% year over year. We've got a situation where gasoline in Wyoming is pushing $6. We know that we cannot produce food at $5 a gallon diesel, and it's higher than that right now. We're concerned about what the USDA recently did with determining that we either adopt the radical gender agenda or they're going to cut off school lunch program funding. So the folks that I met with in Casper yesterday, they recognize this for what it is. They recognize Liz Cheney for what she's doing. This isn't the issue that's foremost in their minds because we know what happened on January 6th. But what this committee is not going to do is actually disclose what happened in terms of the failure and security and those kinds of things. So no, this isn't what Wyoming's concerned about. We're concerned about real dinner table issues, inflation, the open border, the attack on our oil and gas jobs, and those sorts of things.
Right. And to take nothing away from the severity of what happened at the Capitol and the breach there, every Republican that I have ever interviewed here, Democrats alike, has always condemned what happened there at the Capitol. Investigations can always happen. The issue here that many Republicans take is that it's Congressman Banks, Congressman Jordan, Kevin McCarthy's picks were not allowed to be on this committee. The only ones that were the two that we've just mentioned. I want to play this for you if I can, the soundbite if I can. This is your challenger, the incumbent here, Liz Cheney, saying Trump will soon be a thing of the past. Watch.
Tonight, I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the indefensible. There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain.
Before I get your comment, Trump actually responded on Truth Social, his new social network there, to this. So he was paying attention. He said, quote, "The unselect committee has now learned that I, as president, suggested and offered up to 20,000 National Guard or troops to be deployed in D.C. because it was felt that the crowd was going to get very large. Crazy Nancy Pelosi turned down the offer. She didn't like the way it looked. Likewise, the mayor of D.C., had they taken up the offer, there would have been no January 6th. The unselects have ruled Pelosi off limits, no questions. The hearing is another political hoax to counter inflation, et cetera," end quote. That final thought there, inflation now hitting an all-time high at 8.6%, beating the 8.3 in March. That was not expected. It's continuing to go up. Your thoughts on President Trump's response there?
Well, I think that he hit the nail on the head. And the point is that Liz Cheney really is missing the mood of this country and understanding the significant issues. We recognize that the purpose of this committee is to deflect attention from the failures of the Biden administration. Everything we've been talking about this morning and everything that I was visiting with people in Wyoming about last night. Again, inflation, the war on our fossil fuel industries, rising gas prices, an open border, all of those things. What Liz Cheney fails to recognize is that we support the America First agenda, which she does not and never has. And that's the real battle between Liz Cheney and the rest of the Republicans and Liz Cheney and Donald Trump. Liz Cheney wants to make this all about Donald Trump. Donald Trump wasn't there that day. And that's one of the things that this committee is going to have to deal with at some point. One of the things that they did is they did voiceovers. They used a voiceover of his voice and then showed video at the same time, not disclosing the fact that those things were not done at the same time. So again, as a trial attorney, I'm a trial attorney. I'm a constitutional attorney. I don't just play one on TV. One of the things that's absolutely sacrosanct in this country is the separation of powers. It isn't for Congress to pursue a criminal investigation in the manner that they're doing in this case, in pursuing the subpoenas, in the incredible overreach that we see from this committee. The people who were involved, the people who are responsible for January 6th are being prosecuted, rightfully so. The people who were involved in the riot, we address that, but we have the executive branch, the criminal justice branch that addresses that. It isn't for Liz Cheney to determine that without any defense whatsoever, that Donald Trump is guilty. We did not send her to Washington, D.C. to be the judge and jury against Donald Trump. What you will not see in any of these hearings is a defense. What you will not see in any of these hearings is due process. What you will not see in any of these hearings is any photograph, any video, any document, any testimony that does not further the narrative and the agenda of this committee. That, by definition, is a star chamber. That, by definition, is a violation of our due process rights. That, by definition, is a violation of the Constitution. Anyone who disagrees with their narrative isn't going to be called.